I guess I'm writing this because I don't know where else to turn. It all started with a single piece of mail, a thick, intimidating envelope with a government return address. I opened it expecting some boring notice, but my blood ran cold when I saw the numbers. According to the tax office, I owed over $80,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest for undeclared income. Income I had never seen, let alone earned. The notice listed my employer as my family's small construction business, a place I hadn't officially worked for a day in my life. This single piece of paper was the key that unlocked a decade of lies. For as long as I can remember, my parents had a special way of talking about my older brother, Alex. He was the brilliant one, the one with endless potential who just needed a little more support to get on his feet. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who never caused any trouble. When I turned 16, my father sat me down and explained a clever financial strategy. He told me they were putting me on the company payroll as a part-time administrative assistant. It would be great for their taxes, he said, and every dollar of my salary would be put into a special investment account for my future. I was naive, and I trusted them completely. It sounded like a responsible, adult thing to do. They showed me a pay stub once, and it seemed so official. They explained that, by doing this, they could build a nest egg for me that would be ready for a house deposit or whatever I needed when I finished college. It was my reward, they said, for being such a good and uncomplicated daughter. They made it sound like they were doing me this huge favor. A secret between us that would secure my future while also helping the family business stay strong. I felt special, included in their financial world. The arrangement continued all through my late teens and into my college years. Whenever I needed money, Primera worked part-time jobs at coffee shops and bookstores, meticulously saving what I could. I never touched the investment account. When I asked about it, my mother would just smile and say it was growing beautifully, and that it was better not to look at it and just let it mature. They were handling it, they were the parents, and I had no reason to doubt them. The thought that they would be lying to me so directly was simply not something my mind could even begin to formulate. Meanwhile, Alex's life was a stark contrast to my own frugal existence. While I was rationing instant noodles, he was driving a new car every couple of years. He went on lavish international holidays, posting pictures from ski resorts and tropical beaches. He always had the latest phone, the most expensive clothes. When I questioned how he could afford it all on his meager salary from a series of failed startups, my parents would get defensive. They'd say he was just good with money, or that he had generous friends, or that his latest venture was just about to take off. The excuses were always ready. There were moments, small cracks in the facade, that should have been red flags. Once, I overheard a hushed, frantic phone call where my father was talking about covering Alex's markers. Another time, my mother tearfully confessed to a cousin that Alex had a taste for the finer things that his wallet couldn't support. But whenever I brought up my concerns, they would close ranks. They told me I was being jealous, that I didn't understand the kind of pressure a man like Alex was under to succeed. They made me feel small and petty for even asking about it. My own financial struggles were dismissed as character building. When my student loan applications required parental income information, they always handled the paperwork, telling me not to worry about the details. I lived in cramped apartments with multiple roommates, worked grueling hours, and was proud of my independence. I told myself that one day, my patience and hard work would pay off when I finally got access to the nest egg they were so carefully guarding for me. That belief was a comfort, a small light that made the difficult years seem worthwhile and part of a bigger, smarter plan. The tax notice shattered that illusion into a million pieces. The $80,000 figure was terrifying, but it was the breakdown of income that made me feel physically ill. Year after year, the documents showed a consistent salary paid out in my name, a salary that, if it had been invested as they promised, would now be worth a substantial amount of money. A salary that I had never seen a single cent of. It was right there in black and white. An official government record of a life I had supposedly lived, and a fortune I had supposedly earned. My first call was to my father. I was shaking, barely able to speak. I read him the figures from the letter, expecting him to be shocked, to declare it a massive error from the government. But there was just silence on the other end of the line. A heavy, damning silence that told me everything I needed to know before he even said a word. The silence wasn't shock. It was the quiet dread of a secret finally being exposed to the light. It was the sound of a lie that had finally run its course after so many years of careful maintenance. When he finally spoke, his voice was thin, weary. He told me to come over, that we needed to talk in person. He asked me not to talk to anyone else about it, especially not Alex. That was the first confirmation. The immediate need to protect my brother, even now, told me exactly where the money had gone. The instinct to shield him, to manage the fallout for his sake, was more powerful than any concern for the absolute terror and confusion that I was clearly experiencing. My panic didn't matter. Alex's peace of mind did. I walked into my parents' house, clutching that envelope like it was evidence at a crime scene, which I suppose it was. They were both sitting at the kitchen table, their faces pale and drawn. My mother couldn't look at me. My father just stared at his hands. I put the letter down between them and simply said, "Explain this." The words felt inadequate to convey the depth of the storm that was raging inside me, a hurricane of betrayal and fear that was threatening to tear me apart from the inside out. The confession wasn't a sudden burst, but a slow, painful trickle of truths they had kept hidden for over a decade. It started with my father admitting that the investment account never actually existed. It was just a story they told me. From the very first paycheck, every single dollar that was processed under my name was immediately transferred to a separate account, an account that they and Alex had full access to. My name was nothing more than a shell, a convenient and legal way to move money around without raising too many red flags. My mother tried to justify it. She explained that Alex had gotten into some credit card debt right after high school. It was just a few $1,000s at first, and they used my salary to pay it off without him having to know the details. They didn't want to damage his confidence so early in life. It was a temporary measure, she insisted. A way to give him a clean slate so he could focus on his brilliant ideas without the burden of youthful mistakes holding him back from his true and undeniable potential. But it was never temporary. After the credit cards came a failed business venture. Alex had a brilliant idea for a boutique marketing firm, and he needed seed money. Instead of getting a proper business loan, my parents simply funneled him tens of thousands of dollars from the funds that were being processed under my name. They saw it as a family investment, with my future earnings from the company being used to support my brother's immediate needs. They had decided, without my consent, that his present was more important than my future. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as the full scope of it became clear. The fancy cars, the international trips, the designer clothes, I had paid for all of it. My ghost salary, earned through my ghost job, had funded the entire illusion of my brother's success. I was the silent, unknowing investor in the fantasy of his life, a life that he was living while I was counting every penny, believing I was building a future on a foundation of parental love and financial prudence. The irony was so bitter it felt like acid in my throat. I asked them how they could do it, how they could look me in the eye for 10 years, listen to my struggles, praise my work ethic, all while knowing they were actively siphoning away my supposed future. My father tried to explain it from a practical standpoint. He said I was the safe bet. They knew I would be fine. I was responsible. I was smart. I would always land on my feet. Alex, he said, was more fragile. He needed the help, the confidence boosts, the safety net that a constant flow of cash provided. My mother's explanation was somehow even worse. She said they were protecting me. They didn't want me to worry about Alex's struggles. They were handling it as parents, and using my name on the payroll was just a creative solution to a family problem. She genuinely seemed to believe that by lying to me and using my identity, they had been doing a good thing, sparing me the emotional burden of my brother's repeated failures. The level of delusion was staggering, and it left me completely speechless for a few moments. I demanded to know the total amount. At first, they balked, saying the exact number didn't matter. But I insisted, my voice growing louder and colder with every evasion. Finally, my father went to his office and came back with a thin ledger. He opened it on the table, and I saw years of meticulous records, transfers, dates, and notes. Alex rent, Alex car payment, Alex Vegas debt. It was all there. Over the course of a decade, they had funneled just over $200,000 through my name and into his life. $200,000. The number just hung in the air. thick and suffocating. That was the money that could have paid for my master's degree without loans. It was the down payment on a house in a city where I thought I could never afford to buy. It was a future, my future, that had been stolen from me and handed to my brother piece by piece, all while I was being praised for my thrift and responsibility. The praise now felt like a cruel joke, a taunt. I asked them what they expected to happen. Did they think the tax office would just never notice? My father mumbled something about their accountant, thinking it was a low-risk strategy. They had been paying the minimum payroll taxes on my income to keep things looking legitimate, but they never accounted for the massive discrepancy between the income reported and the taxes I was personally filing based on my actual low-wage jobs. It was a ticking time bomb, and it had finally exploded right in my lap. The worst part was their complete lack of a plan for the consequences. Now that the bill had come due, they had no solution. Their business was struggling, and they had no savings left. They had poured everything into Alex. They looked at me, their eyes filled with a pathetic mixture of guilt and expectation, as if they hoped I would have a solution, as if I, the responsible one, would figure out a way to fix the catastrophic mess that their favoritism and deceit had created for me. I decided to call Alex. I had to hear what he would say. I had to know if he was a willing participant in this decade-long deception. I stepped outside into the yard because I couldn't breathe in that house anymore, and I dialed his number. He answered with his usual cheerful, carefree tone, asking what was up. I told him, my voice flat and devoid of emotion, that I had just found out about the payroll scheme and the $200,000. I waited for his response, my heart pounding in my chest. His reaction was not what I expected. There was no shock, no guilt, no shame. He sighed, a sound of minor annoyance, as if I had just interrupted him with a trivial problem. "Oh, that," he said. "Look, Mom and Dad told me they were handling it. It was just some smart family accounting. You never needed that money anyway. You've always been good at saving." He said it so casually, as if he was discussing the weather. The entitlement was so profound, so deeply ingrained, that he couldn't even see what had been done to me. He truly believed he was entitled to it. In his mind, it was his due. I was the sister who didn't have big dreams, who was content with a simple life. He was the visionary, the one who was destined for great things, and the family's resources should naturally be directed toward him. He told me I was overreacting and that getting a letter from the government was just a scare tactic. He honestly didn't think it was a big deal. The conversation was the final, devastating blow. He wasn't just a beneficiary of the scheme. He was its ideological core. I ended the call without saying another word and went back inside. I looked at my parents, who were watching me with anxious eyes, and I told them what Alex had said. I told them that their brilliant, fragile son felt entitled to every penny. I saw a flicker of something in my mother's eyes. Maybe shame, maybe just sadness that the whole ugly truth was out. My father just looked defeated, a man who had made a series of terrible bets on the wrong person and had finally lost everything. The conversation that followed was short and final. I told them that they had not just stolen from me, they had broken me. They had broken my trust, my past, and my future. I told them that the daughter they thought was a safe bet was now facing a legal and financial crisis that would follow her for years. I explained, in very simple terms, that I would be seeking legal advice and that I would not be speaking to them or to Alex again until I had a clear path forward. They tried to protest, to plead. My mother started crying, saying we were family and we could get through this together. But her words were hollow. We weren't a family operating together. For the last 10 years, they had been a team of 3 operating against a team of 1. I was not a part of their together. I was the resource they were using, the well they were draining to water a plant that was never going to grow, no matter how much they poured into it. Leaving that house felt like walking away from a shipwreck. I had spent my entire life believing in the integrity of my family, and in a single afternoon, I had learned that it was all a lie. The foundations of my world had crumbled, and I was left standing in the rubble, alone. The feeling of betrayal was so absolute, so all-encompassing, that it was hard to process any other emotion. It was a cold, hard stone in the pit of my stomach. The next few weeks were a blur of frantic phone calls to tax lawyers and accountants. The initial consultations were grim. The income was reported in my name under my social security number. From a legal standpoint, the debt was mine. The fact that I never saw the money was a matter for a civil suit against my parents. But the government wanted its money from the person whose name was on the forms. The lawyers explained that fighting it would be a long, expensive, and uncertain battle. I had to drain my own small savings account, the one I had built with my own hands through years of hard work, just to pay the retainer for a lawyer. The irony was almost too much to bear. The real money I had earned was now being used to clean up the mess from the fake money I had supposedly been paid. It was a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up. Every corner I turned, I was met with more complications, more forms, more expenses. I tried to explain this situation to a tax agent over the phone. I poured my heart out, telling her the whole sordid story of the ghost employee scheme, the favoritism, the funneling of funds to my brother. She was sympathetic, but ultimately, her hands were tied. She told me these family accounting situations were tragically common, and the person whose name was used almost always ended up holding the bag. She advised me to get a lawyer and work out a payment plan. A payment plan. The idea of spending the next decade of my life paying off a debt that was accrued funding my brother's vacations and bad business ideas filled me with a rage so deep it was almost paralyzing. It felt like a life sentence for a crime I didn't commit. It was an anchor that would be tied around my neck, holding me back from every financial goal I had ever set for myself. Boojing home, traveling, even just having a financial safety net. All of it was gone. My parents did eventually call. My father left a halting, awkward voicemail, saying he was looking into some options to try and help, but there was no real substance to it. He didn't say he was selling his assets to pay the debt. He didn't say he was forcing Alex to get a real job and contribute. It was just more empty words, more hollow promises from a man whose promises I now knew were completely and utterly worthless. I haven't spoken to Alex at all. He sent me one text message a week after our phone call. It just said, "Sorry you're so upset about this whole thing. Not sorry for my role in bankrupting you and ruining your trust. Not sorry for living a lie at your expense. Just sorry that I was upset." The complete and total lack of accountability was, in a way, the most clarifying part of this entire ordeal. It showed me that he was, and always would be, a black hole of need. The emotional toll has been just as devastating as the financial one. I find myself questioning every memory I have of my childhood. Every time my parents praised me for being the easy one, I now see it for what it was. They were grooming me to be the perfect mark. They weren't celebrating my nature. They were celebrating its utility. My independence and responsibility weren't traits to be admired, but resources to be exploited for their real project, keeping Alex afloat. I lie awake at night, my mind racing through all the things I could have done differently. Should I have been more suspicious? Should I have demanded to see the bank statements? Should I have questioned my brother's lifestyle more forcefully? But the truth is, I was conditioned not to. I was raised to trust my parents implicitly, to believe that they always had my best interests at heart. The betrayal is so deep because it comes from the very people who are supposed to be my ultimate protectors. My friends have been my saving grace through all of this. They listen without judgment. They offer me their couches when I can't stand being in my own apartment. And they remind me that this is not my fault. They are the ones who are helping me see that what my parents and brother did was not normal. It wasn't creative accounting or helping family. It was a calculated, long-term act of financial and emotional abuse. It was theft, pure and simple. The lawyer has outlined a few potential paths. The best-case scenario involves a long legal battle, where we might be able to prove fraud and shift the tax liability. But it's a long shot and will cost a fortune in legal fees. The more realistic path is to declare a form of bankruptcy or to enter into an offer in compromise with the tax service, which would ruin my credit for years, but might reduce the total amount I owe. There are no good options here. Every path forward is paved with financial hardship. I had to take on a second job, waiting tables at night after my day job in administration. I'm exhausted all the time. The physical and mental strain is immense. Sometimes, when I'm clearing tables late at night, I think about what my brother might be doing at that exact moment. Is he at a fancy restaurant, Ordering an expensive bottle of wine? Is he planning his next vacation? Is he even thinking about me at all? The thought is enough to make my hands shake, with a rage I have to swallow down. I've come to understand that my parents see their two children in fundamentally different ways. I'm a person, and Alex is a project. You don't ask a project to be responsible or to carry its own weight. You pour resources into it. You prop it up, you make sacrifices for it, always hoping that one day it will finally be finished and all the investment will have been worth it. They sacrificed their daughter for their project, and I'm not sure they even fully comprehend the immorality of that choice. The trust is gone, not just with my family, but with people in general. I have become suspicious and guarded. When people are nice to me, I find myself wondering what their angle is. My family was my entire world, the bedrock of my sense of safety. Now that the bedrock has proven to be quicksand, I feel like I'm constantly on unstable ground, unsure of who or what I can truly rely on. The damage goes far beyond my bank account. I look at old family photos now, and I feel nothing but a profound sense of sadness. I see a smiling little girl, completely unaware that the people hugging her, the people who are supposed to be her champions, will one day view her as little more than a financial vehicle to be used and discarded. They chose their favorite, and they made me pay for it. Literally. It's a wound that I don't think will ever truly heal, no matter how much time passes. What do you do when your family is the source of your biggest trauma? People talk about cutting off toxic family members, but it's so much more complicated than that. It's a constant, aching grief for the family I thought I had, for the love I thought was unconditional. There's a part of me that still, foolishly, wishes they would call and say they've sold the business, sold the house, and that they have a check for me to fix everything. But I know that call will never come. The path forward is foggy. I have to focus on the practical steps: earning money, paying lawyers, negotiating with the government. It's a mountain of stress and work, and it's deeply unfair. I am paying for their mistakes, for their weakness, for their blatant favoritism. I am cleaning up the wreckage of my brother's life while my own is put on hold indefinitely. It is the ultimate extension of the role they always wanted me to play, the responsible one, cleaning up a mess that I did not create. The worst part is the loneliness. I feel like I'm on an island, separated from my past and from the future I was supposed to have. I see my friends getting married, boojing oses, and moving forward with their lives, and I feel so incredibly stuck. My life is defined by a debt that isn't mine, and a betrayal that I'm still struggling to comprehend. It's a heavy burden to carry, and I'm just so tired of carrying it all by myself. I wonder if my parents even feel the loss of their daughter. Or was I never really there to begin with? Perhaps I was always just a supporting character in the Alex show, a functional part of the scenery that was only noticed when it broke down. I suspect that in their minds, they are the real victims here. Their perfect family has been fractured, their secrets are out, and they had to face the uncomfortable consequences of their actions. Their self-pity is probably boundless. So, here I am, typing this out to strangers on the internet. I suppose I'm looking for validation, for someone to tell me that I'm not crazy, that what they did was as monstrous as it feels. I'm trying to figure out how to rebuild a life from the ashes of the one they burned down. The financial hole is one thing, but how do you fill the hole they left in your heart, in your ability to trust, in your sense of That's the debt that feels truly impossible to repay. My lawyer thinks we have a fighting chance to at least prove I was a victim of fraud, but it will be a messy process. It will involve officially suing my parents and my brother. It means taking the stand and laying out every ugly detail of my family's dysfunction for a court to see. It's a horrifying prospect, turning a family tragedy into a public spectacle. But what other choice do I have? To just quietly accept this ruin? I don't think I can do that. Sometimes I fantasize about confronting my brother in public, about walking into a fancy restaurant where he's showing off and calmly explaining to his date or his friends that I'm the one paying for their meal. I imagine the look on his face, the brief moment of humiliation, but I know it wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't give me back the money, and it wouldn't heal the betrayal. It would just be a fleeting moment of hollow victory in a war I have already lost so much in. I have to learn to be my own parent now, my own protector. I have to be the one to look out for my own best interests, because it's painfully clear that no one else ever was. I am learning to read every line of every contract, to question everything, and to trust my gut. The naive, trusting girl I used to be is gone forever. She died the day that envelope arrived from the tax office. I miss her sometimes, but I know she wouldn't have survived what came next. The road ahead is long, and I'm scared. I'm scared I'll be in debt forever. I'm scared I'll never be able to trust anyone enough to build a real partnership. I'm scared the anger and resentment I feel will curdle into a bitterness that will poison the rest of my life. I don't want to be defined by what they did to me, but right now, it feels like this huge, dark shadow that covers everything. How do you step out of a shadow that was cast by your own family? I'm starting with small steps. I've blocked their numbers. I'm in therapy. I'm focusing on my work and my friendships, the real, tangible things in my life that have not been built on a foundation of lies. I'm trying to find a way to forgive, not for them, but for me. I can't carry this much rage forever. It's too heavy. But forgiveness feels like a distant country that I don't yet have a map to. It seems impossible to imagine a day where this won't be the first thing I think about in the morning. For anyone reading this who is in a family where there is a golden child, I just want to say, be careful. Be vigilant. Don't ever assume that the title of parent automatically makes someone trustworthy. Question things. Demand transparency. Your future is your own, and you are the only one who will truly, unconditionally, protect it. Don't learn that lesson the way I did. Don't wait for the official notice to arrive in the mail, because by then, it is already far too late. The financial aspect is a nightmare, but it's the casual cruelty of it that haunts me the most. The fact that they watched me struggle, that they listened to my dreams, all while knowing they were actively sabotaging them. They chose to sacrifice my future for my brother's comfort. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a policy they enacted for a decade. It was a conscious, continuous choice to treat one child as a person and the other as a resource. That is the thing I can't get past. My lawyer wants to know if I have any written proof, any emails or letters where they admit to the arrangement. But they were always too smart for that. It was always conversations in person, reassuring smiles, and pats on the back. It was the kind of insidious deception that leaves no paper trail, relying only on the bonds of love and trust that it is simultaneously destroying. They built my prison out of trust, and I willingly walked into it, believing it was a safe house built just for me. The system is not built to protect people from this kind of familial betrayal. The law sees a name on a form, a social security number, and it makes its calculations. It doesn't have a column for favoritism or a line item for a broken heart. It can't quantify the years of gaslighting or the psychological damage of being used by the people you loved most. I'm fighting a battle on two fronts. One in the cold, logical world of tax law, and the other in the messy, emotional world of my own shattered mind. I wonder if they will ever understand what they've truly done. Not just the financial ruin, but the complete annihilation of our family. The bond is severed forever. There will be no more holidays together, no phone calls to share good news, no family support in times of crisis. They didn't just steal money from their daughter. They chose to effectively lose her forever. All for a son who, even now, doesn't seem to appreciate or even fully comprehend the sheer scale of the sacrifice they made for him. My goal now is just survival, to get through this day, and then the next. I have to believe that one day, this will be a story I tell about a life I used to have, not the story that defines my entire existence. I have to believe that I am stronger than their betrayal, and that I can build a future for myself. A real one this time, with my own two hands, and without any help from people who would only ever hurt me. It's a daunting task, but it's the only one I have left. I keep asking myself the same question over and over again. A question I will probably ask for the rest of my life. Why wasn't I worth protecting? What was so lacking in me that they saw me as expendable? And what was so special about him that he was worth destroying me for? I know I'll likely never get a real answer, because the answer is probably something they can't even admit to themselves. The truth is too ugly, too damning. I suppose this is my first step toward taking back control. By writing it all down, by putting the whole ugly story out there for the world to see, I am refusing to keep their secret anymore. I am refusing to be the silent, complicit victim they groomed me to be. This is my story, not theirs. It is a story of betrayal and injustice, but I am determined to write a new chapter for myself. One where I am finally the main character, and not just a footnote in my brother's biography. My therapist says I need to focus on what I can control. I can't control their past actions or their current lack of remorse. I can't magically make the debt disappear, but I can control how I respond. I can choose to fight. I can choose to surround myself with people who value me. I can choose to build a life that is so full of integrity and self-respect that it becomes a fortress they can never touch again. That's what I'm trying to do. But it's hard. Tonight is one of the hard nights. The exhaustion is bone deep, and the anger feels fresh all over again. The numbers swim in my head, and the memory of their faces, pale and guilty at that kitchen table, is burned into my mind. I am mourning the loss of my entire family, and it's a grief that is profound and complicated. How do you mourn people who are still alive, but who are lost to you forever because of their own choices? It's a strange and painful limbo to live in. So, I'm putting this out into the void of the internet. A message in a bottle from a shipwreck you never saw coming. Maybe someone else out there has been through something similar. Maybe just knowing I'm not the only one will make the burden a little lighter. This is the truth of what happened to me. It's the story of how my parents made me a ghost employee to secretly funnel money to my golden child brother, and how it completely and utterly destroyed my life.